Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker. On this podcast, we interview people from all different walks of life, different industries, different professions, because we want to learn what they have learned in their career that has made them so successful. Because while a smart person learns from their mistakes, a genius learns from the mistakes of others. And in that vein, we want to learn what they have learned in their career so that we can either avoid those mistakes completely or so that we can fail faster and be better at our career and about our life. My guest today, her name is Ruksana Hussain, and she's an award-winning journalist who has a great story to tell us how she came from India and made it into LA in America and what she has learned along the way and where she's going next. Because sometimes it's important for us to reflect back on where we've been, but sometimes looking forward can be just as important. So Ruksana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. I love just saying award-winning journalist. That must feel really darn good.
It feels very good. When I was able to finally say that, yes, that felt amazing.
So you're a publisher of an online magazine called Traveler and Tourist, and you have some beautiful images of different things on your social media from all the different places you go. Tell us a little bit more about Tourist and Traveler and what it means to be a journalist in this area.
Sure. So Travel and Tourist is a online magazine. It's a flip style magazine, so it's just not in print, but it's online, published monthly, goes to a subscriber only database. So we've got about close to 40,000 at this point, which is really nice.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, next year will be 5 years. We started publishing start of 2020, and it will be 5 years next year. So we've got some good plans in place. You'll know if you subscribe, so subscribe. Um, Traveler and Tourist really was started as an avenue for me as a travel journalist to be able to write and tell some of the stories that maybe I'm not in a place to publish elsewhere. Because different outlets have different audiences, they have different themes. And of course, it is a pretty competitive market. There are a lot of travel journalists out there, and so everyone's trying to publish in. As we know, the few print and a few other online outlets that are there, we've seen print industry suffering over the last few years.
Yeah.
A lot of outlets have gone out of publication. So I
So
felt
is
like,
this like akin to like a Condé Nast?
yeah.
Similar sort of vibe? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so kind of similar, but definitely trying to cover bases as far as markets. So I've tried to ensure that I have a good mix of stories that cover a spectrum of travel experiences, right? Because I felt like travel is such a personal experience that you can't really dictate to someone what that should mean to them or how they should do it. So I try to provide the inspiration and the ideas, and I hope that people find something informative and useful there that they can then, go ahead and plan their travels around or use during their travels. And that's really the idea behind the magazine, is to be able to try and share as much as I can on interesting news that maybe doesn't make it out to the bigger outlets sometimes because it's just too small for them to bother publishing.
Mm.
That's really my focus, is trying to bring more attention to those businesses, individuals, initiatives in the travel space that maybe aren't getting the eyeballs that they should. And that's really what started Traveler and Tourist, and I will say it's doing really well. And a lot of subscribers typically tend to message back and let me know if they found something interesting or they planned a trip because they read about it in the magazine. And then you know that the work you're doing is finding its people.
Yes.
It's always nice.
Oh, yeah. You know that I relate to that.
Yes. Because there is no way, I sit here, I work freelance, I work independent. So I'm sitting here in my little bubble creating the work that I do. I don't have, a set of colleagues or a boss or assistants or anybody telling me how amazing my work is, or, this article turned out great, or your pictures are amazing. No one's here to give me that feedback. And so I look to my readers and subscribers to give me that feedback, to let me know that I'm on the right path when it comes to the content I'm providing them. So it's really nice to hear from them, because they don't get anything in return for telling me how they felt about reading an article, right? If they took the time out to let me know that something was useful or inspirational, or if they were able to share something with another friend because they thought they could use that information. So it's always nice to hear back from readers. Yeah.
Well, and I love that because, being a solopreneur, it can be very lonely. and especially in the digital space, you're there with your computer all the time. I mean, what are some of the things that you've learned on being a solopreneur? And if you had to start over, would you still pick that model?
Oh my gosh, if I had to start over, there would be so many things I would do differently. So many. I will definitely say that I'm one of those solopreneurs starting out who felt like I was very alone. Nobody understood what I wanted to do, and that I was the only person facing what I was facing, because I did not make an effort to go out there and network and look at what other people are doing. And there are many groups. There are organizations where you can be a member. There are organizations that are free and you can just join them. There are resources online and in the community that you can use where you can go in as a new entrepreneur and learn from others. And I just did not think of those as avenues because I did not know they existed. And I think part of that goes to research. I definitely did not research what resources were available to me. I kind of jumped on it and was like, okay, I'm going to create this thing. Let's do it. Yeah, that didn't work out very well for the first 2 or 3 years because it just felt like everything I did fell flat in its face. And what am I doing wrong? Why is nothing working? Why is nobody giving me anything to write? And so starting out as a freelance writer was really hard for me. And then I took the time to ask 2 or 3 people that I met, just through online groups, to say, hey, can you take a look at my resume? Can you take a look at my experience and just tell me what I'm doing wrong? Why can't I find a job? Of course, the recession was one thing. That was when I was able to work in 2008. But also, why can't I get any freelance writing? And one of the first cues I got on that was, well, if you look at your resume, for a lot of Americans, I have a name that is hard to pronounce. I had experience they couldn't relate to because all of my studies and all of my work was back in India. So the first thing they said was try to get yourself at least a certification or some kind of recognized, like a diploma or something that will give people some relevance to what it is that you've done or what you can do. And that might be a first start for you to then take yourself to people and say, hey, here's my certification in freelance writing or online editing. Do you have something for me from there? That was sort of eye-opening to me because I was a graduate. I had 5 years of work experience in India. I didn't understand why people found that hard to accept. And needed something that they could relate to that was like a US-based, learning or education that they needed from me. But that was the first thing that worked. I did some evening courses. I lived in Atlanta at that time. I took on some evening courses at Emory, which was in freelance writing and editing. And sure enough, the next thing you know, I got those courses done over, I believe, 6 months or so, and had the certification. And then the very same editors, content companies, publishers that I reached out to before, at least gave me a response. And 1 or 2 even assigned me stories or said, hey, we don't have a story, but we're looking for a copy editor. Do you want to do that for us? So there were these avenues that then opened up. And I figured out different ways in which I could translate that skill of writing into different industries. And so that's sort of where it all started from. So that was a rough start, but hey, I figured it out eventually.
Well, and the thing that really stands out to me is just getting a foot in the door. You just need one person to say yes.
Yeah.
You just needed one. And then from there, it builds upon it and you can build credibility on that. And so it's really like sometimes when you're thinking about, needing all of these customers, that can be super overwhelming, so daunting. But if you think, I just need one. I just need one. And I love that. The other thing that you said that I really want to make sure that we highlight and touch upon is how you talked about you didn't look for what else was out there. And I feel like this is such a narrow line to walk because on one hand, comparison is the thief of joy, right? Like, and you lose your authenticity if you're trying to see what other people do and trying to replicate it. But then on the other hand, you're not learning from them on how to take what's your special sauce and make it your own. So gosh, it's such a fine line to walk. And I think it's something that we don't talk about enough on how to find our own specialness and being able to highlight it, because the thing that makes Ruksana so special is not going to seem special to you because it's just you.
Absolutely true. That is a fine line. And I will say that we don't have enough conditioning in our societies or enough training to have that mindset where we're able to do the comparison, but take the good from it, right?
Yeah.
And then apply that to where we are and what we want. And that took a lot of, honestly, re-engineering and rewiring of how I think initially to be able to be successful, because that comparison can eat you up. Sure enough, I did compare myself to other people out there. Like, how are they doing this? How are they successful? Why not me? How is she making so much money? How is he started the business at the same time and he has 5 clients and I have nobody? Sure, that comes up. But then you want to take a step back and say, what is it that they're doing right? And what can I learn from this? Because there is something to learn. If they're doing great and I am not, right? Stop looking at it as a negative and try to see what you can learn. That does not mean copy them, but it means look at what they're doing and how you can apply those principles to what you are doing, right? So I'm not saying run behind 5 businesses that they have as a client and poach them for yours. That's not, that's
No.
that is definitely not what we're talking about. Maybe look at what industries those clients are in. Are these, money-making industries? Do you think there are other magazines or outlets there that you can work with? Are there other clients that you think you could work with? So there's definitely that you can look at. Look at what they're doing in terms of the websites, compare your website to theirs. Don't copy their website directly and just stamp your name on it. That's not what we're talking about. But look at the pages they have. Look at the kind of information they're sharing. What are the keywords? Some things you don't have to recreate the wheel for. It's been done and it's been successful, and you can adapt that to your, your state of work and where you are professionally. But then learn to make that yours. And I think that's most important, is don't just directly lift and then say, this was inspiration. That's
right.
But learn to adapt and see how to use that for yourself. And then it will make more sense to you, and it will still be authentically you. You're putting yourself out there in your own way. You can learn from others how to do it better. And I think that's always great.
And it's exactly how you said about rewiring our brain. Like, we like to think of our brain in such a fixed state, but it's not fixed. It can be changed at any time. Like, there are ways to do it, and there's lots of resources out there. So that's a great thing to remind people of.
Yes. And you will keep rewiring yourself through life. That's part of growing, and that's part of learning. What you are thinking about right now, you probably won't think about in 10 years' time. The way I thought when I was 25, I don't think now when I'm 40 plus. My thinking is very different. And that's what I said. Like, if I could go back and tell my 25-year-old self how to do this, there would be so many things I would have to teach her, because
That's so true.
was trial and error. Everything was, let's do this. Okay, this didn't work. Let's track it back. Let's fine tune this and let's do it again. Did that work? I don't know. Let's backtrack and let's do it again. It was a lot of that, because I just did not know the resources available to me. I did not know anyone else doing what I was trying to accomplish. I had nobody else that looked like me or had my background or experience to guide me and be my mentor. So it was very difficult that way, but it's been a lot of learning.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I want to take even a step further back. You were born in India, and you mentioned you came into the US in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? What prompted you to want to move to the US, and what kind of culture shock did you have to overcome?
So I was born in India, partly raised there. I was also raised in Oman in the Middle East for about 10 years. So I did most of my schooling there. And then I moved back to India for high school and graduation and work. I moved to the US in 2006. I got married, and my husband was in Atlanta. And so I moved with him to be there. And I will say the culture shock wasn't so much in terms of, things like food or clothing, or which is what people expect will be the first things, because I had lived outside of India before. So I kind of knew how to prepare myself for another country. I think the shock came more in the way some things are not really talked about in media, and you find out about that yourself. So things like work, for example. I don't think I ever heard anyone refer to me as a woman of color before I came to the US. That was news to me, that I was a person of color.
You were just you.
I was like, okay, that's what you want to call me. I mean, that was weird. Some of the language and the terminology was interesting for me. And I do know that legally, and I think they've done away with this. I could be wrong. When I first got to the country, I was considered a non-resident alien. And
Isn't that a glamorous title?
That was alien. So the paperwork, I was just like, gosh, these people really know how to create some terms here.
So welcoming. We're so welcoming.
Those very interesting things. Language I thought was interesting because Atlanta, is this major city in the US. It is also, I believe, an entrance point for refugees and asylum seekers in the US as well. So you do have a pretty large community from other countries. We had a great circle of friends who are Indian. They have a large Ethiopian community, Asian communities all over. So I expected that there would be a certain sense of understanding and respect for people from other communities. But when I first got there and I was trying to get all of my paperwork done, being new to the country, it just felt like a lot of places, I was speaking English, by the way, but people just did not seem to understand what I was saying. Because I had an unaccented accent.
I mean, you have no accent now.
I learned to talk this way because I realized that a lot of places I went to, if I pronounced a word differently, people just look at me like, I don't know what you're saying. And I would just think, how hard is it to try and understand? There's only that many ways you can pronounce this word in a certain context. It's not that hard. So it was surprising to me that in a place like Atlanta, with so many different ethnicities and communities there, that seemed to be a big problem. And I realized from that very quickly that if I wanted to work in communications, I needed to sound like I could communicate with the vast majority who are all Americans. So the American accent had to happen pretty quickly if I wanted to get anywhere.
How did you learn how to do that? Because I feel like I know people who have lived here for like 50 years and still have really thick accents.
It was a lot of learning. I would watch the TV all the time. I would listen to radio all the time. I would watch things online all the time just to get the news. I would listen to the news all the time. If I heard a word that was pronounced differently, I would keep repeating it to myself. Something as simple as in India, we would say derogate. Well, in the US, you say derogatory. In India, you say derogatory.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really different.
In India, you say observatory, and here you say observatory, right? Yeah. So you keep repeating the words to yourself over and over, and you learn to say that. I did that a lot because I felt like to expect someone else to understand what I was saying would be really hard and a long time in coming. It was easier for me to take an accent and get somewhere. I will do it. And that's what I did.
Like, it's hard enough communicating even with people with the exact same dialect as you, because we all have different upbringings and backgrounds that color how we interpret things. And, some people are better at reading body language than others. And then you add in accents and it's just this extra layer of complication. I lived in Italy for a while, so I understand what it's like to move to another country and to have to figure out their bureaucracy and how everything works. And I was learning Italian. So I was trying, right? I was really, really trying. I really wanted to be very proficient in it. And I remember going into a cafe to get a coffee, and I was asking for a muffin as well. And the guy looked at me like I had 5 heads, and he's like, "Eh?" eh? And I was like pointing to it saying muffin. And he goes, ah, muffin. And I'm like,
Oh,
really? You
really?
couldn't like put that together? So I can completely relate to this and what that's like. And, I feel like it's something that more people need to do. Like not enough people have taken the opportunity or made it a priority to travel and to go other places, because going other places, you learn so much about people and yourself. It's really important.
It is very important. I think that a lot of people miss out. And it doesn't have to be travel to another country sometimes. It could
True.
just be near you, but even that experience can help you learn.
Absolutely. And it's beautiful that you have a traveler and tourist magazine to help guide people to do that and learn new places and learn new things that they might not have learned before.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy that part of it.
Well, as we're wrapping up, Ruksana, thank you so much for being here. I like to ask one last question, and that is, how do you define success? And when do you know if you're there?
So I will say that my definition of success has changed over the years and will continue to change. It is what it needs to be at that moment. I build my aspirations on what I'm doing right now and what I think I can achieve in the next few years or the next few months. Um, Back, I would say 10 years ago, my definition of success at that time was I need to have an up and running writing business that I can depend on will bring in a sufficient amount of income, a certain number that I had in my head, and that's what I worked towards. And then 5 years ago, my definition of success was I either need to publish a book or a magazine. That's something I need to do. And so the magazine happened. And
Mm,
so I'll say that I've reached that goalpost. Um, and then it was, well, my definition of success is to be, financially fully independent by the age of 50, which I'm 42 right now. And so what do I need to do to make that happen? And part of that included being able to write a book, which I'm doing, that will come out next year. So I feel like,
congratulations.
thank you. Thank you.
It's
But
a fun process, isn't it?
it's an amazing process. I'm in the research phase at this point and putting things together. So it'll be really nice. But I think I can't say that I have one specific definition of it. It changes all the time. I have new things I add to it. I think I have things I remove from it. Um, I think more than I would say definition of professional success, I look at it as a definition of individual
Mm.
success. And to me, that means being happy and being content with what I have and being inspired to wake up every day and do something I love. And I think that's more important to me than say hitting a certain amount in my bank account or whatever. Like, yeah, that's more important to me right now.
I love that. Everyone has different definitions of it. And some people, they keep score by their bank account and other people don't. And it's totally okay.
Whatever works for
Whatever
you,
works. Yeah.
works for you. As long as it's keeping you happy and keeping you motivated to do the things you love. I think that's important.
Well, that is a beautiful way to wrap this up. Please tell everyone how they can reach out to you. How can they work with you? How can they subscribe to the magazine?
Of course. So the magazine is on travelerandtourist.com. That's the website. But they can go on there and subscribe. And then they'll get every month's issue coming straight to their inbox. So they don't have to go anywhere else looking for it. We are actually working on our escape issue right now, which will come out end of the month. And it's turning out to be quite a nice issue. So subscribe before that goes out. And then if you'd like to work with me, learn more about my journey, about my book coming out, I'm on ruxanawrites.com. And then all of my social media are on both of those sites. So anyone can reach out to me from there.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else that you haven't shared that you'd like to?
No, thank you for having me. This was a great conversation. I love the flow and I'm looking forward to hearing what your listeners have to say about it.
Yes, me too. Because we love to hear the feedback. So please reach out. And thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe and share it with your audience so we can continue to bring more amazing guests like this. Please reach out to Ruksana, go to her websites, find out all the great things that she's up to in the world. And then you can say you're friends with an award-winning journalist too. So until next time, everyone, have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.